Good day, Dr. Ashila and everyone. So, my group will be presenting about the hormonal regulation during menstrual cycle today. So, what is menstruation? So, basically, the menstruation is the shedding of endometrium wall, which is also known as the lining of uterus, followed by blood. So, it occurs every month throughout the reproductive life of a woman once they have reached puberty. So, I'm very sure that everyone knows how the cycle begins, but it's okay. I'm going to give a brief explanation about it. So, the cycle begins with the very first day of bleeding. To be more specific, the shedding of endometrium, which will be counted as day 1. So, in order to get a better understanding, I've inserted a GIF that displays the menstrual cycles from day 1. So, if you look at that diagram, see from day 1, the thickened endometrium sheds off and it lasts till day 7, approximately at least day 7. So the question is, what is primarily responsible for the menstrual cycle to occur? Like, what is being triggered so that the menstrual cycle occurs? So answer is the hormones which is produced by the hypothalamus that causes the initiation of the menstrual cycle. So talking about the hormones which plays a vital role in menstrual period are the follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, progesterone and estrogen. The hormones function and its role in this cycle will be explained further by my team members.
Okay, let's move on to the first hormone. It is the follicle stimulating hormone, which is also known as FSH. FSH is one of the gonadotrophic hormones. It is released by the pituitary gland into the bloodstream. FSH is one of the hormones essential to pubertal development and the function of women's ovaries and men's testes. In women, this hormone stimulates the growth of ovarian follicles in the ovary before the release of an egg from one follicle at ovulation. It also increases oestradiol production. In men, follicle stimulating hormone acts on the Sertoli cells of the testes to stimulate sperm production. As the follicles grow and more estrogen is produced from the follicles, it stimulates a surge in luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, which stimulates the release of an egg from a mature follicle during the ovulation. Thus, during each menstrual cycle, there is a rise in FSH secretion in the first half of the cycle that stimulates follicular growth in the ovary. After ovulation, the ruptured follicle forms a corpus luteum that produces high levels of progesterone. This inhibits the release of follicle stimulating hormone. Towards the end of the cycle, the corpus luteum breaks down, progesterone production decreases, and the next menstrual cycle begins when follicle stimulating hormone starts to rise again.
Luteinizing hormone, or in abbreviation known as LH, is a hormone produced by the gonadotrophic cells in the anterior pituitary gland. LH plays a vital role in the menstrual cycle, which is to trigger ovulation and aid in the development of the corpus luteum. During follicular phase, that means after period, in response to the increasing level of estrogen, production of gonadotrophin releasing hormone GnRH is stimulated. This will in turn stimulate the secretion of LH. LH production will constantly increase until it reaches a peak, which is also known as LH surge.
Progesterone is one of the female sex hormone which produces mainly during the luteal phase. Luteal phase starts after ovulation and ends with the first day of menstruation. One of the major role of progesterone is thickening the lining of uterus, which is also known as the endometrial lining. Once the egg is released from the follicle, the empty follicle will develop into a new structure called corpus luteum. Then the corpus luteum will produce progesterone. There are two possibilities whether fertilization occurred or does not occur. If the egg is successfully fertilized by a sperm, the corpus luteum will continue to produce progesterone in order to prevent the endometrial lining from being shed throughout pregnancy. It also
prepares the uterus for a fertilized egg to implant. Furthermore, once the placenta has formed, it becomes as the primary producer of progesterone. Here, I would like to highlight that other than corpus luteum and placenta, progesterone is also being produced by adrenal glands. As the luteal phase ends, progesterone will provide negative feedback on hypothalamus to inhibit the secretion of gonadotropin releasing hormone. As a result, the release of follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone will suppress. This is to prevent further maturation of follicle and ovulation as well. Let's say if the fertilization has not occurred, the corpus luteum will disintegrate, which causes the progesterone level to drop. Thus, the endometrial lining begins to shed and a new menstrual cycle starts.
Good day to everyone. My name is Niveta Anaperempuan Dev Anandaraj. Now, it's my turn to explain about the roles of estrogen during menstruation. As we all know, estrogen is a major female sex hormone. Before we go further, I just want to be clear here that males also produce a small fraction of estrogen from what females produce. So, let's take a look. Estrogen is mainly produced by ovaries and also by adrenal glands, but in a smaller amount by breast and fat cells in general. When I mention that ovaries also produces or secretes estrogen, that means there are two cells that produces estrogen in ovaries. They are theca cell and granulosa cell. Firstly, this theca cell will produce androgen, and this androgen will be transferred into granulosa cell, and the granulosa cell will secrete it as estrogen. Moreover, when women gets pregnant, the placenta also helps in the secretion of estrogen. Have you ever known that there are three types of estrogen? They are estrone, estradiol, and estriol. All these estrogens have slightly different arrangement or number of atoms. Now, let's see how estrogen affects menstruation. During luteal phase, ovulation occurs where the egg is released and the follicle develops into corpus luteum. This corpus luteum produces small amount of estrogen but larger amount of progesterone. Now, if fertilization occurs, estrogen level increases and these help in thickening of the endometrium wall. From here, we can know that the function of the estrogen is to thicken the endometrium wall for implantation. If fertilization failed to occur, the corpus luteum disintegrates. Hence, the level of the estrogen decreases and this leads to negative feedback on hypothalamus and directly on pituitary gland, where the hypothalamus inhibits the secretion of gonadotropin hormone, which is known as GnRH, whereas pituitary gland inhibits the secretion of follicle stimulating hormone, which is known as FSH, and luteinizing hormone, which is known as LH. Lastly, the menstrual cycle will begin. Just now, I did mention that estrogen helps in thickening of the endometrium wall. Besides that, there are also other roles where we can see at the diagram on the right side. It also aids in breast development, for muscle strength, prevent atherosclerosis, increase cholesterol in bile, increase fat store, maintain bone mineral density, and also for memory. I hope my explanations are good enough to understand about the roles of estrogen and how does the estrogen affects the menstruation. That's all from me. Thank you.
So, in a nutshell, we get to know that a menstrual cycle is driven by a diverse association of hormones. So, in this case, endocrine system plays a very significant part in the reproductive cycle of a woman, where it secretes the hormones from the glands in the body into the bloodstream. So, to the right side of your slide, that's what we call as female HPG axis. To be clearer, the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, which relates to hypothalamus, pituitary, and gonadal gland as if they are a single entity. So these three, they act closely to control the menstrual cycle. So how it works? So hypothalamus secretes a gonadotropin hormone, which triggers the anterior pituitary gland to secrete luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. So luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone signals the production of estrogen and inhibin by ovaries. So the higher level of estrogen and inhibin have a negative feedback effect on the pituitary and hypothalamus. So this leads to a decline in development of gonadotropin hormone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, which eventually contributes to a decline in estrogen and inhibin development. So that's how it works, and that's all from us. Thank you.